Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar titled Securing Servers in Public and Hybrid Clouds. My name's Phil Cox, and I'm the Director of Security and Compliance at RightScale, or more affectionately known as the Security Guy. To set a bit of context about my role here at RightScale, it can be characterized as a three-legged stool. The first leg being kind of corporate focused and guiding the overall security program at RightScale. The second leg being more product focused and working with the platform and development teams to guide the product in terms of security features and offerings, as well as achieving compliance certifications. And the third leg being customer focused and interacting with customers to help them design secure cloud environments. So basically, if you have a question that has RightScale and security in it, I'm a good place to start. With that said, I'd like to start today's webinar with a couple of questions to set the stage and understand who's attending. So if you could take a moment to answer the questions on the screen, I'd really appreciate it. So with that, next slide. Why are you attending today's webinar? Concerned about threats with the cloud, compliance with the cloud, looking for a better way, all of the above? So if you could just take some time to answer that, we'll see who's here and why. All right, so looking at the results, pretty much split by, all of the above. Most everybody's concerned about some portion of everything in there. Interestingly enough, compliance is the lowest, which is a little different. Next question. Which of these practices do you implement on servers today? Host-based firewalls, host-based intrusion detection, security event monitor, vulnerability scanning, other. If you could just take a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to answer that, that'd be great. Looking right now. So most of you already do implement host-based firewalls, some intrusion detection, very little auditing and monitoring, which will be, we'll talk a lot about that today, and some scanning and others. So, pretty good, I guess, spread across that. And lastly, our last question, what do you value most in a security solution? Broad functionality, content, security how-tos, easy interface, integration API to reporting. So we'll just give a few seconds to summarize this, and we'll take a look. Almost done. So broad functionality is something that most people value. Interface, a little bit less, content important. So I think today's webinar will provide some good functionality or good information on that, kind of how to manage this stuff. So thanks for your response. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panel today. Joining us from CloudPassage, the CEO and cloud security expert, or just regular security expert, as well, Carson Sweet. Also joining us today is Budnik, and he's the director of the ISV Partner Program here at RightScale. Yuri's got a number of years of experience in the cloud, and while you think ISV Partner Program, he's quite technical, so don't let that fool you. We can answer your questions anytime during the webinar, so please feel free to ask questions using the chat window. Our own Will Eschen will be fielding those, and be sure to stick around at the end for a Q&A session. We're going to try, Carson, Yuri, and myself will try to field questions from that, the live chat window. So we'll kind of get to that. The panel, again, you can follow each of us, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. All of us have Twitter handles, so maybe worthwhile taking a look at those as well. Real quickly on the agenda. To give you a preview of what we'll be covering today, we'll start by providing a brief introduction to cloud security. We'll talk about security and compliance in the cloud and how they're different. Then we'll cover a model for securing cloud-based hosting environments, followed by a demo of an integrated solution utilizing CloudPassage, Halo, and RightScale. And then again, we'll end the webinar with a Q&A period. Try to leave about 15 minutes for that so we can help you. And with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Carson.
Okay, thanks very much, Phil. I appreciate it. So we're just going to jump right into the webinar here. Very happy to be here. We work very closely with RightScale on a number of fronts. Great company. We're very excited to join them on this webinar. Just a little background about CloudPassage. We've been around for a couple of years now. We've had production companies since about July of 2010. We came out with our product publicly in January of 2011. And our commercial release came out just this past Halloween. So a relatively new company, but making some amazing progress, as you can see, with the early adoption numbers there and some of the customers and awards that we've been fortunate enough to be able to accomplish. Again, sort of learning as we go along from what customers really want. The poll information is very helpful for us as well, and we love to get feedback from customers on what they want to see in a cloud security product. We're at that wonderful stage in a company's life cycle where it can adjust very rapidly to meet market needs. So definitely would love to hear that kind of feedback from folks. So moving to the next slide and getting into the agenda here. People talk to us a lot and ask about, what are the threats here and what are people concerned about? What should I be worried about? What you're looking at here is a diagram of a botnet. This is one of the tools that attackers, especially fraudsters, use to do the bad things that they do. What you see here with the white lines are zombified computers that are attacking the targets, which are the red dots, typically banks in the United States, or something that's being DOS, denial of service attacked. The thing as a cloud server owner that you want to be concerned about are the blue lines. All of these zombified computers need command and control. So bot herders are people who build these botnets, and they use these command and control servers to communicate with the zombie machines themselves. That's what those blue lines are. So this is a single botnet. One botnet will typically use from 20 to 50 command and control servers, depending on the size of the botnet. At any given time on the internet, there are 3,000 to 5,000 botnets active. So that's a lot of servers that are out there, typically compromised servers with some kind of command and control drone software installed on it. So these guys are really interested in compromising servers because it's essentially the fodder they use to do their business of fraud. Moving to the next slide, we'll talk a bit here about G and Y. So this is an example of a website that specifically focuses on scanning servers to see what's out there. If you're in the Amazon cloud, you can go out, take a look at this site, and see if you're actually on the list. Moving forward to the next slide, you'll see that very clearly. One more, if you will, please. A little hiccup there. Yeah, this didn't come out greatly, but you can see at the top, the Amazon cloud is actually a pretty hot target for these guys. So, this is an example of the type of view that people have of the cloud. There's a couple reasons that cloud servers are particularly popular for attackers, and if we can move forward to the next slide, we'll talk about that a bit. The cloud really does change the balance of things. So what you're looking at here is a typical private data center, which we've done for years, and it's been wonderful. You have the good stuff on the inside. You have layers of firewalls and intrusion detection and content malware detection. And the bad guys are on the outside. Everything runs through that choke point, and things are pretty simple and happy. Now, the thing about this model is we've gotten away with having servers in this pretty poorly secured configuration state because they're behind these layers of perimeter security. Moving forward to the next slide, you'll see that when you start to move those servers out to the cloud, the game changes quite a bit. So these servers in the cloud no longer benefit, obviously, from the data center perimeter security. You're right out there, right next to the bad guys, and they don't have to worry as much about those perimeter security controls. That makes it easier for them to attack and compromise a server. That also makes it more likely that the compromise will not be detected, which means that all their hard work to compromise your server will not be undone. Moving forward to the next slide, as a cloud server owner, this issue is exacerbated by the elasticity of the cloud. So when you hit the scale button in the cloud, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do. CloudPassage actually uses RightScale, and we have a very highly scalable component to our technology. But you need to have those the servers well configured, because when you replicate the servers, you're also replicating any vulnerability that's on that server. And again, fraudsters know this, and they seek out cloud server implementations because, again, they're easier to compromise. The challenge for you as a cloud server owner is more servers does not equal more people. So this really becomes an automation problem, which is exactly where CloudPassage and RightScale bring a lot of value to the table for organizations that are running large-scale cloud environments. And then moving to the final slide in this sequence, this is what the fraudsters know. So they do seek out cloud environments quite specifically. I think Cisco just came out yesterday with a study around this very topic. If I'm a fraudster, I'm spending time and money, quite literally, compromising servers to use in botnets. If I'm able to penetrate an elastic environment and I'm able to get my botnet drone on a machine image that you then use to spin up other servers, and you're unaware of it, I've now got more botnet to sell for free. So that's a very attractive economic proposition as a professional criminal. Another reason that these guys really are attracted to cloud environments. So moving forward in the deck here, one thing to keep in mind is your servers means they are your responsibility. This is a diagram, and this is text directly from Amazon Web Services. Amazon is very clear. They take care of security up to the hypervisor. They deal with the hardware, the shared network environment, but once you get into the actual virtual machine, it's all up to you. It's your responsibility. They're not on the hook at all. Looking at the overview of security processes, it could be no more clear. This is directly from Amazon. The customer should assume responsibility for the server, and the customer needs to add host-based firewalls, intrusion detection, et cetera, because it's not what Amazon does for you. And this is an interesting thing. A lot of people don't realize that it really is their responsibility to secure that cloud server. And again, that's where CloudPassage comes into play. That's specifically what we do. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind. The way that we implement security, which we'll talk about in a moment, gives you the ability to do this because we do everything inside the virtual machine, which makes our solution very, very portable. So moving forward to the next slide, what we actually provide, won't go into a huge amount of detail on this. We will be doing additional webinars that go into deep dives on various areas and actual demos, full demos, but we provide network access control, configuration, security, compliance monitoring, server account management, both auditing and the ability to manage who has accounts on the servers, intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, two-factor authentication for network access to servers that you can set up in about 5 minutes, really, really fast, really neat technology. And all of this is available via the REST API, which gives you the ability to integrate with existing technologies like RightScale. So moving to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about how this works. How do you get all this functionality onto my server without killing the resources and making the server go really slow? Very common question, very good question. And we do this through the Halo architecture. You see the dotted lines. This is all software as a service that we provide to our customers, very similar to RightScale. There's a very small piece of software called the Halo daemon, very securely written, lots of security controls around it. And again, later webinars we'll get into lots of detail on that. This little piece of software, it's about 3 megabytes in memory, is instrumentation that interacts with the Halo compute grid. And that you see on the bottom right of the screen. Now the compute grid is a RightScale managed compute grid that does all the work on behalf of the Halo daemon. So what that means is that the Halo daemon is just instrumentation, it's eyes and hands, if you will, that the compute grid uses to learn information about a server's security state and events on the server. The compute grid does all the crunching and analysis of information and decision making based on the policies that you create through the user portal, and then the compute grid will issue instructions back out to the Halo daemon to take steps to secure the server, such as disable a particular user or change a firewall rule, things of that nature. The split between the amount of CPU, for example, for a security assessment run, a scan for security, full server, thousands of points checked on a server, it takes about 2 to 3 seconds of CPU time on your server, and we run minutes worth of compute time on our grid. So that's 95, 98%, very typical of the processing required to get the security done. we offload from your server, we take it onto our grid, which is optimized to do that. So again, moving forward to the next slide, the policies and commands are pulled down by the Halo daemon. This is a one-way communication. The Halo heartbeats out, pulls information down from the grid, so there's nothing open on the Halo daemon to be attacked or connected to from the network. And moving to the next slide, the results of the commands from the compute grid tell me about your process table, tell me about your file system, tell me what ports are open, tell me what processes are bound to listing network ports. That data is sent back into the compute grid. The compute grid unpackages it, verifies integrity, unencrypts it, and then on the next slide you'll see it actually does the computation. So again, taking all the load off of the server for the crunching up of data, and then moving to the next slide, in addition to commands that go back out to the Halo daemon for the server, the user gets alerts, they get trend reports, they get information about the state of their server and events that have happened there. So again, all of this is available as a SaaS, software as a service, so it can be up and running in about 5 minutes. The user portal that you see there is how customers interact, from an end user point of view, in addition to this RESTful API gateway, which allows customers to integrate very closely their existing technologies with Halo to be able to extend those security capabilities. A really good example of this are security event and information monitoring tools. Many of these tools typically have a blind spot in the cloud because they can't see, there aren't connectors, if you will, that give you the ability to cleanly get state information and event information into that SIEM that might reside on the enterprise. This is one of the places where we very commonly see integrations with the API gateway to eliminate those blind spots. So that's just one example. So then moving to the next slide. One of the key things about Halo, as RightScale is, we are multi-cloud capable. So what this means is that you may have a private cloud, you may have hybrid cloud environment where you have AMIs that are being burst out into EC2, for example. You want a tool that works in all those environments. That's multi-cloud capable. You don't want to have to deal with management or security or any of these things with different tools in different environments. And the reality is that most companies now do have multiple hosting environments in play. We believe that trend will continue. So just as RightScale is multi-cloud capable, CloudPassage is just as portable. So we work on any environment, public, hybrid, or private. We actually have a few customers who are running Halo on a traditional hardware environment simply because it makes it easier for them to manage the security on those servers. So we really do run anywhere with a single pane of glass, making life very, very easy for users of CloudPassage to have consistency across their environments. So if we can go ahead and move the slide forward again, please. The way that the features and pricing with Halo works, sorry for the little green boxes, there should be checkboxes. These things don't always survive the imports. But these are the functionalities that we talked about before. On the left column, this is our free edition. So we have a free basic edition of the product that you can run on up to 25 servers for as long as you want for free. If you need things like long-term data storage for compliance, if you need things like constant monitoring for hourly scanning for things like configuration problems or software vulnerabilities or events on the server, that is a pro feature, as well as unlimited server protection. Those features and Ghost Ports multi-factor authentication and the API access fall in that as well are part of our Professional Edition. The Pro Edition starts at 10 cents per server per hour. It is metered on an hourly basis, so it's billed exactly the same way that Amazon EC2 or Rackspace or any other Elastic Cloud provider is billed. As you use more hours, the amount per hour goes down. So if you have lots of servers, this hourly cost can go down to pennies, just a few pennies per hour. So there is a scaling model there that makes it more economical to run this on larger implementations. So moving forward once more, the way you get started with Halo, if you'd like to take a deeper dive, in addition to keeping your eyes open for future webinars, you can register for free. You can go to cloudpassage.com, find your way to the portal, register on your own. There's no need to interact with us. No credit card or anything is required. And you can fire this up on 25 servers absolutely for free. We would like you to do that. We love that sort of feedback. We'd love to see how people are using the tools. To unlock the professional features, if you want to try some of these API integrations, if you'd like to see Ghost Ports and try out some of these more advanced features, you can request an evaluation key from CloudPassage, and we'd be happy to issue one of those to you and you can have at the pro features for a period of time. From there, people will typically, start to explore setting up server groups. So server groups is how we manage security in our environments. So, you create a group for web servers, you apply policies to that group, and then as servers join that group, the policies are applied. The same thing for firewall policies and learning policies and so forth. So that's something that people do initially to sort of get a feel for how you can manage security easily with the tool. We do provide a number of base policies right out of the gate. So you can go select a CentOS policy, a Red Hat policy, whatever the case may be. The rules are there for you to do assessments and generate some interesting alerts and data about the servers. Those typically need to be optimized. People turn off some rules that are too stringent for them. They may create some rules of their own if they have requirements that are not covered by one of our policies. But that policy exploration is kind of the next step. And you can always visit community.cloudpassage.com, which is an open forum for questions and answers and articles about CloudPassage. Our own analyst team here, which we have a very expert team of security professionals at CloudPassage, constantly write cool rules, articles, blog postings on how you can use Halo to accomplish various security compliance functions. It's a very rich source of information. So we really recommend that if you start to look at CloudPassage, you take a look at our community site as well. And then if this is a fit for you, and it doesn't matter if this is the free edition or the professional edition, you can deploy Halo via RightScript. So if you are a RightScale user, there is a RightScript that we've developed in partnership with RightScale. It's the first of a series of expected integrations that allows you to deploy the Halo daemon on your servers via RightScript. So it's very simple at that point. You put your API key, your CloudPassage API key in, if we can move forward a slide, perfect, into RightScale as a credential. You add the RightScript to your server templates, and when you launch new servers from RightScale, they will have the Halo daemon automatically in play. So this makes it very easy and very simple. Once you've gotten your security configured in your environments, it's very straightforward to get that security consistently applied across all of your servers. And again, the group-based nature of the way that you manage security with Halo maps very, very well to the template-based method in which you manage servers in general with RightScale. So the two models really map up quite well. So with that, I'm going to pass back over. I think Yuri is going to pick up the ball from here and is going to talk a little bit more about RightScale.
Thank you very much, Carson. In fact, we're going to give a demo of how you can very easily deploy Halo into a server running in RightScale in many different clouds. So we're going to show with deeds, not just with words, what we mean when we say you can deploy Halo very simply into cloud servers. Before we get into the demo part, I want to take a few moments to talk a little bit about the technology so we can give everything the proper context and it makes a little more sense as we run through the demo. So for the people on this webinar that are not familiar with RightScale, we're a cloud management platform, and we've been around for quite a while, especially in internet years. RightScale launched the week after EC2 Amazon's Elastic Compute Cloud launched. So we've been there essentially from the beginning of what we've been calling cloud computing. And we've actually are running at a decent scale, even though we're only about 4 years old, 45,000 users of the platform, people logging in to manage servers using RightScale, and millions of servers launched. We keep a live counter on rightscale.com on the homepage there, and it's just about at 3.5 million servers. In fact, I'm going to make a prediction that you're going to see that accelerate for those people in the know that have seen a request from Amazon to relaunch every single machine they got. That's probably going to kick up the numbers quite a bit because there's been a lot of transitions, I imagine, related to security factors, perhaps, even though there's not really complete information there. And what it means to RightScale is we're really being used by our customers to manage some of the largest production environments to date in the cloud. And it's across industries and verticals, anything from startups in social gaming, you see the Zynga logo there, to universities, to healthcare companies, Mentor is a division of Johnson & Johnson. So all sorts of different verticals in use cases. In fact, anybody that wants to manage and run a server in the cloud can find some benefits within RightScale. And speaking of that same cloud, people sometimes mean significantly different things when they say cloud. They could be talking about software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service. And I don't want to take the time to explain all the differences there and how they they stack up in the trade-offs between benefits and capabilities. But I do want to show that RightScale is really for managing servers that you get from infrastructure as a service providers. So companies like Amazon and Rackspace that quite literally are renting you the servers by the hour, they give you these basic building blocks. With RightScale, we make it possible to faster and simpler create fully built environments out of them. And that's what you see in this logical diagram that I'm showing you here. Think of RightScale as lying at that intersection between the resource pools you want to access, meaning those servers that you're renting by the hour, and the applications you want to run into. And the benefits of this management platform is things like server templates that make it with pre-configured environments, pre-configured machines rather, make it faster and simpler to deploy, having a user permissioning system so you can control who's got access to what, and all sorts of capabilities that I'll show some of these during the demo, and it'll become a lot clearer that way. And what we're going to focus on here is on this concept of server templates, which really lies at the core of RightScale. This logical diagram that you see on the right side really has two main sections, base machine image and scripts. In a server template, as opposed to in a virtual machine where everything is baked into a big file and everything you stand it up is an identical copy, the server templates are a lot more modular and a lot more dynamic. So when you're making a virtual machine, you stand up a virtual server somewhere, and then you spend some time installing applications, configuring things, getting it to be just the way you want it, but then you save it as a big file and you can stand up as many identical copies of that as you want, but that's the key, they're identical copies. It turns out you want them to be slightly different sometimes, so that you can have perhaps an application server connect to a different database, not to the exact same database. So in a server template, we also have a virtual machine. The main difference is we only put the operating system on the virtual machine. The business logic of the server itself lives in write scripts that will run at boot time to install and configure things. So if we're setting up if we have a server template for, say, a database, it'll have, say, a CentOS 5.4 image. Let me show you this diagram here. And it'll have a simple VM with just enough OS to boot. And once that virtual machine is running, we quite literally start running scripts that install MySQL and make configuration changes. If we have a server template for, say, an application server, Apache, it'll be the exact same VM, just plain CentOS 5.4, for example, with nothing else loaded on it, and then it runs different scripts that now install and configure Apache. And the scripts themselves, oops, we're missing a piece of the animation there. And the scripts themselves are modular. So what does this mean? It means that you don't have to keep lots and lots of virtual machines that you need to worry about. Are they set up securely? Do I have a misconfiguration somewhere? So what you see here on the left side is a company having dozens, many dozens perhaps, of virtual machines versus just having one CentOS 5.4 or one Ubuntu image that you secure properly, and lots of server templates built on that, but just one VM to maintain. And the scripts themselves in the server templates are modular. I can add a script to a machine. I can move it between servers. I'm going to show you this during the demo, and this is where the power of the configuration and the customizability comes from. And that's one of the big, big benefits of the automation that I'm going to show you in the demo itself. So if you were to explain this to somebody else in your company that's perhaps not as technical as you, and you wanted to make the point about this new idea of server templates, think of it as a difference between a CD and a playlist on an iPhone or an iPod or some sort of MP3 player. You can make as many copies of the CD as you want, but every time you burn it, it's going to be identical down to every single bit. And that's useful, cloning copies. But on a playlist, you can add songs, you can remove songs, you can change the order in which they're going to play. That's the benefit of the capabilities to customize and easily customize server templates. And by the way, if some of this sounds like it's very new or radical or not quite proven technology, keep in mind the numbers I was sharing when I was introducing RightScale. We have millions of servers being launched with customers that are running massive environments. In fact, 100 million people every day touch servers managed by RightScale. That means our customers, some of them are running quite massive environments, and they're all having this kind of approach that I'm describing here. So it's something that's very well established and set up. So having said that, let me move into the demo portion of the presentation. And for that, what I'm going to do is bring my web browser to the foreground here. So you see me logged into RightScale to the RightScale dashboard. In fact, just to make it more interesting, RightScale itself is software as a service. You log into our dashboard to manage the different servers you might have from different providers. And that's what you see here on the left side of the screen. From this particular RightScale account, I have it associated with one Amazon account and one Rackspace account. And by the way, I could actually control several Amazon accounts, several RightScale accounts, all from a single pane of glass, all from one location here. It's not a one-to-one correspondence. It means that I can access many different resource pools, as I've been calling them from here, even my own private cloud. If I build my own private cloud using technology like CloudStack from Citrix or Eucalyptus, you can actually associate and connect that cloud right here, so you can have multiple providers, even your own data center, that you can access all that capability from one location. On the right side of the screen, you can see a list of deployments. And a deployment in RightScale is a container for multiple servers. It's a way to, as we like to call it, manage at the system level, not individual machines. So this is particularly useful for companies that have lots of servers. It's hard to do something individually to dozens or maybe hundreds of machines. But also, look at how you can organize things this way. Compare it to having a long list of servers sorted alphabetically and all you have is server IDs versus having deployments with descriptive names with all the servers that are part of that application. And by application, I mean that in the larger sense of the word, all the servers that belong to this particular thing that I created grouped together in a deployment and being able to organize them that way. And as you can see with green and red dots, I can easily see what's running and where. And I have even a column for month-to-date cost. So I can even see that this PHP 3-tier application, I spent $22.44 so far this month on the servers that are running here. And if I click on this particular deployment, I actually get a more complete information page with what's going on in the deployment itself. And you can see I'm doing this live because we're waiting for the page to load quickly. So on the left side of the screen, we can see that I can give all of my servers nicknames so that they're easier for me to identify and know what they're doing. And this is a really simple 3-tier architecture. Load balancer 1 and 2. I have an app server and have a DB 1 and 2 master-slave database. Now we build this just for demo purposes, so we were showing how you can have something that's somewhat to fairly sophisticated, a 3-tier architecture with plenty of allowances for having redundant capabilities, meaning 2 load balancers in case one fails, master-slave database. You don't want to go dark if your database machine fails. But we were just doing this quickly, so I only threw in one app server in here. But my point is, fairly sophisticated environment, but right now is not being protected by Halo. And we heard from Carson all the reasons why you want to be able to really secure your machines a lot more. What I'm going to show you next is how actually how quickly, dramatically quickly, you can do this. And by that I mean for people that have worked in data centers before and know the kind of work this takes. So the first thing you usually want to do is create a staging environment because you don't want to deploy something into production live. So hypothetically, we're pretending this is my live environment. I want to put Halo to protect it. I don't want to do it on live machines that are customer facing. So creating a staging environment, anybody that's on this webinar that's done this before, I think you'll agree with me that can be rather painful, and it takes days or sometimes even weeks. And let's say if you have the hardware available to do it. Now in RightScale, because we have this access to servers from Amazon and Rackspace and other providers, and we can set them up with API calls, and because we're based on server templates, and you can think of it as a configuration database of everything that's going on in this deployment in that regard, I can do what you're going to see me do next here. See the little button that says clone? It does exactly what you think it does. In about as long as I'm going to take to describe it, I'm actually going to make a clone of the complete environment that you just saw me do live. So the configuration of all the machines that you saw here, even the data from the databases. I made a brand new deployment that's a clone of running machines. I didn't have to wait till 2 in the morning on the weekend to do this, so I didn't impact something that was running live. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to rename it. I'm just going to abbreviate CloudPassage. So this is a deployment I'm creating to do some QA testing of CloudPassage, of their Halo agent, before I deploy it. So I spent a bit of time during the presentation talking about server templates and write scripts and how they're modular. So what I want to do is I want to add a write script, and actually I'm going to click on the server template here for the app server. So you see me do it live. I want to look at that script definitions of this particular server template, and quite literally, you saw me describing, these are actually chef recipes instead of being scripts, but the functionality is the same. These scripts will execute as the server boots up, and will actually install and configure PHP and Apache and set it up as it needs to work. Now, I want to also install the Halo agent on those machines, and I can actually just add another script in here because CloudPassage has created a script that does just that. So I can modify an old server template. I'm going to switch to the head version. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. And once I'm looking at the newest revision of this particular server template, I now have the ability to add scripts. And I click on that. This brings me to a dialog box for our multi-cloud marketplace. And here I have conveniently CloudPassage as a publisher of scripts. And I have the one script they're publishing here, the CloudPassage Halo, which I know it's a script that installs our agent. And I'm going to select this, and voila. That's simply I added the agent to the server template. I have the ability to move it in the sequence that I wanted to execute. Oops. For simplicity here, I'm going to leave it where it was. Now I can make all sorts of changes here. Once I complete making changes, what I do is I commit them, meaning saving a new revision of the server template. So as I do this, and you watch me do it live, I'm going to write a comment, includes installer for Halo agent, and I commit the change. The idea here is that you don't want to overwrite what you had before. We're making a new revision of the server template so I can roll forwards and backwards for application lifecycle management purposes. And in fact, this is what I just created here, revision 2 of the server template with the changes that I made, and you can see that it was updated by myself. And that means that I can always track the changes, and I have another button here for diff. If I ever want to look at what are the changes between version 1 and version 2, or as it evolves forward, I have the ability to have visibility into that. We know that security, they call it's a process, not a goal or a target. That makes it easy to be, or easier at least, to be able to track changes as they happen. So let me navigate back to the deployment you saw me create from the clone of the original one, and that's that one right here that you see. And I will now point out that we have you'll notice now that each of the server templates has a revision. So what I would do here is I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm just going to describe the process instead of doing it step by step. But I can click on this particular server template, and I can change the settings so that it now boots up of revision 2 that you saw me create, not revision 1. And I would make the light change to the other server templates. I have the database server template and the load balancer server template. And then I can launch my machines one by one, or I can select all shown, and I already have here launch selected and apply to selected. And I now added the Halo agent to a whole bunch of machines. Now, I don't need to do it machine by machine. I want to stress, I'm just changing the server template because I can have multiple and many app servers. For simplicity, we didn't create an auto-scaling group of servers that can scale up and down based on load. You wouldn't need to do it to each machine itself. You do it to the template that the machines are based on. Now, it does take 5 to 7 minutes to launch all the machines, and we don't really want to pause and just wait during a webinar like this. So cooking show style, we happen to have one baking in the oven already, so I can show you what the result looks like once you roll it out. So I'm navigating back again to the main dashboard that I showed you before, and now I'm going to go to the same PHP 3-tier deployment, except this one we already put the Halo agent into all the machines. And let me speak about an interesting option and capability that we have there. You saw me modify a server template and include a new revision. The other option is just to clone a server template, in essence fork it, and make a set of changes that are now separate in a separate tree, in a separate fork. And that's what we actually did here on the live one. So you'll notice it's actually a separate server template that we even put CloudPassage into the name of it itself. In the server templates, you can always track where you cloned it from. There's an inheritance tracking functionality. The other really valuable thing of this write script capability is that the write scripts have what we call inputs, which is the ability to pass values into the scripts before they execute. So that if I'm about to send up a virtual server, I can pass it some parameters that then will cause different actions to take place as those scripts execute. Again, we call those inputs. With inputs, I can pass values into scripts. And I have an inputs tab here for this server, for this deployment. And if I click on it, I can see all the inputs for all the scripts that are in all the server templates in this deployment. Remember, I was talking about being able to manage at the system level, not individual machines. That means I can assign a value to a particular input that will now be inherited by any script in any server template that's in this deployment, and that's in fact what we see right here. Very conveniently, we have an input on that installer for the Halo agent. One of the inputs there is the CloudPassage API key. You need to connect it, you need to tie it, obviously, to your individual Halo account. I'm sorry, your CloudPassage account. If I click on Edit, you can see that all these values are easily modifiable as it's loading here. Now, I'm going to switch to this tab for CloudPassage. I logged in right before the webinar. I wonder if I'm timed out. Yes, I'm timed out. So good security there. It doesn't let me just stay. And let me log back in. So I'm logged back into my CloudPassage account. If I go to Settings, notice here I got a little tab for API key. And here's an API key. On a CloudPassage account, we heard Carson describing how you can create that for free. And I can go back and I put that value into my CloudPassage API key input, and that's how I connect the machines that are running with a particular account itself on the CloudPassage side. It really is that straightforward. Like, you know, it's not a tutorial what I'm doing here. It's a demo where we're running through the topic in a quick way, but it is as uncomplicated as you see me running these things. Now I'm just simply navigating back to the servers. I click cancel instead of submit because the information didn't change there. So I'm coming back to the deployment, and notice I have 2 load balancers, master slave database, and an app server, 5 machines. And if we go back over here to CloudPassage, that is in fact what we are tracking here, the 5 machines that you have on the RightScale side that you see here on the CloudPassage. And now that we're on the CloudPassage UI, I would like to bring Carson back so he can show us a few interesting and useful things here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jerry. Great walkthrough. And we'll keep it to just a few minutes because I know we've got some questions coming in. Looks like some great questions that the participants want to hear. So just real quickly, what you're looking at here is the dashboard for CloudPassage. And if you look down the left side, we're not going to go through everything in lots of detail. I really do recommend that you register for a free account. There isn't any commitment or anything required, and take it for a test drive yourself. But the areas that we focus on, as I mentioned before, are configuration monitoring, software vulnerabilities, so looking at are pieces of software that are installed on a server vulnerable according to the NIST National Vulnerability Database. Event monitoring looks at events that happen both at the cloud level itself and within the server, and that can be a very broad range of things, very, very configurable. Both auditing locally here in the Halo portal itself, as well as generating alerts. Firewall management, as I mentioned before, there were a couple questions on firewall. I'll be happy to talk about that. Is host-based firewall management from a central location, and then access management. So Yuri, if you could just click on one of those servers, we'll show an example. That looks like a good one. So you can see here what you're looking at is the actual configuration scan for this server. So what Yuri did yesterday when he registered for his CloudPassage account is he selected a security template that we provide that was designed for the particular operating system that he's running. And you can see all of the things that we're checking in this particular policy to verify that the server is in a reasonably secure state. So Yuri, if you can click on that 5th one down, disable root login via secure shell, for example, that's the one. You can see here that we checked to verify that the root account cannot directly log into secure shell, which is not a terribly good practice to permit to do. We did create an account password policy failure on purpose, so you can see what a failure looks like. So if you can open up that top one, Yuri, you can see there that we looked at several components here. We looked at the pass warning age setting, the maximum days before password needs to be changed, and the minimum length. So Yuri, if you can open up, say, that top one for minimum length, you can see that what we were looking for here in the login desk file was a path minimum length of at least 8. What it actually found was 5. So again, in keeping with good security practices, you want to enforce a reasonable minimum password length on accounts in order to ensure that brute force attacks cannot be executed effectively. Now that's not the only thing you do. Obviously, secure shell keys are important as well. Those are other things that we can look at. But the point here, again, thinking back to having a lot of servers that come up and down frequently, automating things and being able to generate alerts in real time if things are really in a very poor configuration state, or if someone deconfigures security, or someone does something that even innocently has exposed the server to compromise. It's very important to be able to automate that, and that's really what this is all about. So if you can scroll up just a bit there, if you click on the IP 104031, we can look at the rest of the data that's available on this server. So you see the configuration scan. In the professional edition, we do keep data long-term for you. In the free edition here, you can see the sample data there. That's just 1 day's data that you're able to see. You can also see software scanning. You can click on that if you'd like to, Yuri. We'll just kind of bounce through some screens here real quickly. So more detail on the left. And, I'm sorry, on the right. That was it. You can see here that this is the scan that happened on the server that shows that there are a number of packages that need to be updated here. So this is, again, very important stuff to keep in mind. Someone had asked earlier, I think, about denial of service. This is one of the real critical areas for preventing denial of service attacks. Now, your provider will typically provide edge protection to try to block denial of service attacks, but it's also important that your software is not vulnerable and that your software is reasonably, securely configured to prevent the effect of denial of service attacks from taking. For example, worms that can take a system down based on a buffer overflow because, let's say, your CPIO may be out of date. There's a way for them to hit that. So if you can go back 1 screen, Yuri, that would be wonderful. Another area that we focus on, if you can scroll down, Yuri, is security events. I'm not sure if we created any interesting events, but we'll take a look. We did not, but in this screen, you would be able to create policies that say, I want to generate logs, I want to generate alerts when certain things happen. Those things can be anything from a particular user logging in to a process being present that you don't like to an unknown port coming up on the server. So if someone starts a new device, talking back to the botnets, if you see a new IRC server come up on 6667, we can detect that, alert you to it, and again in the Pro Edition via this API, there are intrusion prevention capabilities available to do things like create an explicit firewall rule to block access to something you detected that you may not want to run. Going back 1 screen, Yuri, we'll take one more look at one more thing very quickly. If you scroll all the way down, Yuri, there's going to be one more area, server access scan. So we'll take a look there. And this gives you a view on a per server basis of all the accounts that are on this server and data about them. So you can see that lots of accounts you would expect to see here. You obviously, with the system accounts, you want to see never logged in. You want to make sure that no login is set there. These are also things you can check in an automated way through the automatic policy scanning tool. And if you scroll down just a bit more, Yuri, I'm sure there's a root account down there, and we'll look at that just for fun. If you click on the root account there, you can also see all of the accounts in detail across the cloud. So if you had 50 servers running, this screen would show you, actually if you scroll over, Yuri, click on view root on all servers not assigned.
Which one? Oh, this one here? There we go.
There you go. Yeah. So this is the root account on all of your servers. So you, again, in a glance, you can burn down for any users, see how things are configured, see when the user's logged in, and even edit servers and users and deactivate them. So this is a really easy, quick way. If you do see that a particular user is in a bad state, or you've put a user on a watch list, let's say you've got a contractor that has left and you want to make sure that you didn't accidentally leave their account on an old server image that you might spin back up later. We can detect that. We can alert you to the fact that that account exists. You can pop into this interface real quickly and just knock that account off very quickly. So again, the idea here is to give you all the tools you need to really do security well on your cloud servers and make all of this very easily deployable in a very flexible way through RightScale. So we'll stop there, and again, I encourage folks to keep your eyes open for additional webinars that CloudPassage will be holding around the details here. And, jump online, register, and take a look for yourself at how the system works. Give it a spin.
Carson, before we begin with the questions, I just want to point something out because I'm sure we got some very clever security people on the webinar. I showed an API key on OpenText that everybody can see on the webinar, so we'll be changing that shortly. We just needed it to work for the purposes of the webinar, but we did notice that we're not supposed to share that with everybody.
Yeah, but that's the good thing about the way we implemented our API keys. You can rotate those as well. So
yeah.
your API key is safe.
Thank you.
All right.
So
why don't we, you want to open it up to questions now, Yuri?
I think that'd be great. And Phil, I believe you have some questions queued up. If maybe
start. Yeah. So just real quick on the webinar, there's some resources, the blogs. I know CloudPassage has a blog as well. Some Twitter handles you might want to follow. Let's jump into. There have been a couple of questions that have asked. So they seem to be mostly directed at Carson and the Halo product. So I'll just walk down the list. First one, how can policies have knowledge of malware neighbor virtual machine sharing resources with the customer? In other words, how can this approach prevent neighbor attacks of, say, shared memory channels and interface cards? So I think the gist of the question is kind of intra-hypervisor, on the same machine. How does how can Halo protect that?
Yeah, great question. Very common question. Whoever asked it definitely knows their cloud security. The term that we hear a lot for this is a guest jailbreak. So how can you prevent someone from breaking out of their own protected VM and making their way into another? And the answer is it's extremely difficult to do outside of the VM, and CloudPassage does not do that. That's not something that we can do today. We're looking at, the only way to do that really is to monitor the memory itself, and you can do that from within a hypervisor. However, in a public cloud environment, the end user does not have access to the hypervisor to be able to implement that sort of technology. So that's one of the concerns that people have. So what do we do about that? To begin with, we're looking at a future implementation. We actually have some government agencies who have asked us to look into this closely, where part of Halo is actually a kernel driver that can look at memory, and we can keep an eye on things like, are there strange bucket overflows happening that are from an unknown source or that are happening at all? So that's something we're considering as a future feature. In the meantime, what folks are doing is not looking as much for the event that gets them into a machine, but we're looking at the effect. So attackers don't do a guest jailbreak just for fun and they stop once they're in the machine. If they're going to do it, they're going to do things to the machine, and that's where Halo can detect these undesirable states or these footprints or fingerprints of an intrusion with things like the configuration monitoring, the event alerting, a product that we're bringing out in beta. I think this might be the first time we've publicly announced it, that does cryptographic, binary, and configuration monitoring. That will be in beta very early in 2012. So that will also give you the ability to monitor binaries that may be getting tampered with. So while there's not the ability today with Halo to stop a jailbreak scenario, there is the ability to detect and respond to it. Again, we are looking in the future at the possibility of something that is an in-memory process that can stop those. Great question, by the way. Very good question.
Terrific. Terrific. Yeah, I do think that the whole issue of kind of VM introspection and sitting at the hypervisor does require getting at that cloud provider level, and it's, I think, like you said, I think down the road those will be things that providers will probably be offering to their customers, utilizing something like CloudPassage, Halo, things like that. Next question was, is the Halo daemon dumping security data per server to be crunched later and displayed from the dashboard?
So I guess the short answer is sort of. The idea here is that the daemon collects information from the server based on the policies that you set up. So we don't just grab information that you have not configured the system to evaluate. The only thing that we look at on a regular basis without configuration is the actual integrity of the daemon itself. So we have this heartbeat mechanism that the daemon reaches out to the Halo grid. every 60 seconds by default. That can be configured down to as slowly as every 15 minutes. And one of the things that happens there is we will verify the integrity of the actual running daemon. So if the daemon has been tampered with, the grid can detect it and alert you to the fact that someone has tampered with the agent. Besides that, if you haven't configured it, we're not going to collect data about it. That's not what we're there to do. When you do configure something, that is correct. The Halo daemon does collect information, sends it to the grid, and crunches it there. And the crunching happens on the grid, again, to keep the crunching from having to happen on your machine. Good example of this is software vulnerability scanning. You don't want to spend a lot of cycles on your machine crunching through 200, 300, 400 packages and have to keep a local copy of the entire NIST National Vulnerability Database on your server. We do that on our side. So it is sort of a daemon is providing data to the grid evaluates it, and then the grid, the other half of it that's not covered in this question, the grid will then issue commands back out to the daemon, again based on your policies, to actually take action, to do things like change firewall rules, or as you saw in the interface, change configurations for a particular user's account, for example.
Great, thanks, Carson. It looks like we're kind of wrapping up, getting up to the top of the hour. One last question. There was a couple more, but how does your solution compare to Amazon's distributed firewall? And I'm actually not, interestingly enough, I'm not familiar with that service. I wonder if they're talking security groups.
It could be security groups. There is a distributed web firewall that a third-party provider, and those get confused sometimes. But the way that we compare to Amazon security groups, which is included with EC2, the big differentiation there is that you're in complete control of the firewall mechanism. So it's no longer multi-tenant; it's a uni-tenant firewall. And the second big difference there is that we're bidirectional. So the Amazon EC2 firewall doesn't have capabilities to do outbound filtering, so it can't stop an outbound botnet. It can't stop a data extrusion. Those are all functions that are really important in the cloud because if a system is compromised, one of the key things to be able to do is isolate that compromise, and outbound firewall filtering capabilities is key to that. So that's at a really high level what the major differentiations are. There's more about that on the community.cloudpassage.com site, and in general there's a lot more detail about how Halo works, the underlying technology, at community.cloudpassage.com.
Great. Thanks, Carson. Sounds good. Again, we're at the top of the hour. I just wanted to thank everyone for attending and let you know that there will be a recording of this up on the RightScale website tomorrow. If you have any questions about CloudPassage, you can contact the team at info@CloudPassage or contact Carson directly. There's the number. RightScale, you can send to sales. There's our number. You can contact me, again, phil@rightscale.com, or, again, anything for RightScale you can send to thesecurityguy@rightscale.com, and I'll get it as well. So, again, thank you for taking your time and attending the webinar. I hope it was helpful and informative, and, again, let us know if you have any more questions. And until next time, again, thank you, Yuri and Carson, for taking your time out, and a great webinar. So
thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.